Ladies and gentlemen, we are tuned in to the Rico Report.
I really don't know what to tell you.
That game was insane. Welcome to the Big Squad.
Shout out to the Big Squad.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Welcome to the Big Squad.
welcome on a very special evening to the Rico Report. We are here. He is our team. This is the Buffalo Fanatics. Bing, 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 bing.
Oh, we're going up on a Tuesday night. Buffalo Fanatics, a loaded show for you. Tuesday night jam-packed here on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. You already know who it is to this side. I'm on the opposite side here. That's my man Rico. Special guest below me, Joe Marino tonight. It's going to be a fun one, and we're glad you're joining us. Me and Rico wanted to collab for a once-a-month show. This is the first one, and we're kicking off in style. I'll give you one more strobe here.
Yes.
We're making it happen, baby. Thanks for joining, everybody. And let's rock right into it, Rico. I think you wanted to kick it off with a little bit of Jersey talk.
Yes, let's talk Jersey talk. First and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, that intro is one of the fire intros on any YouTube show. I love it. It gets me hyped. I'm sitting here doing this.
How could you not get nuts with these lights?
I don't ever do this. Before we do start though, ZBOT, my guy, and I got Joe Marino right here joining the show. Joe, what's going on, man?
I'm doing good, guys. Thanks for having me. Obviously, that intro brought a lot of juice to the table, so the bar's been set high. We're gonna have to keep this energy going all throughout the show here.
Well, you know what? We're gonna keep this up because now we're gonna talk about league proposals. Right? Every season, there's some outlandish things that are brought to the table, and there's some very interesting ones. And I got a few that I want to drop to you guys. So, number one, Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs have put on the table that let's open up the jerseys. Let's allow non-quarterbacks, non-kickers to wear numbers from 1 to 49. Zach, I'm going to start with you. Are you okay with this move? Are you okay with opening up the numbers? You're seeing a receiver with number 9, right? A linebacker with number, 38. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
The NFL lately is giving us a lot to adjust to. I'm already having a tough time saying the Bills are going to go 17-0 this year as opposed to going 16-0. There's a lot of new elements to this league, and we better start getting used to it. Amazon Prime is now going to be hosting the Thursday night football games. We are now seeing the NFL embrace celebrating in the back of the end zone. We have the Bud Light fan cam in the back. Yes. Now we have the additional game, and we all know the 17th game is a precursor to the 18th game. And after that, probably from there, we're going to have expansion teams at some point. The league is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I like the proposal because it allows skill players to wear these single-digit jerseys. And what that does is it's another tidbit that says the NFL is trying to eradicate that old saying, no fun league, that was tied to them for a very long time. I think they understand the society around the NFL is changing, and they've done a really good job thus far of keeping up with it. I relate it to the MLB. They have done an atrocious job of keeping up with the times, and that's why their viewership is declining. The NFL is only going to get bigger. I look back at the playoffs last year. For God's sakes, they had a game on Nickelodeon. I myself I was watching it because it was entertaining. It was different. It was fun. The NFL is doing a really good job of reaching new demographics, a new audience, and they know what's coming up. They know that the younger generation is going to want a lot more than what we're used to, and we're already seeing that happen. So is this a big deal, giving single-digit numbers to skill players? No. But what it does is it kind of eliminates that element of, hey, you have to wear this number. Hey, because you play this position, you have to wear X through Y or whatever, X through Z. I'm not much of a number or a letters guy. That doesn't make any sense. But you get what I'm saying here. At the end of the day, I think it's one more step the NFL is taking forward to say, let's get rid of some of these silly rules that really don't hold any weight.
Absolutely. Joe, how do you feel about that? Are you on board with seeing your quarterback with the same number as your receiver or close to?
Listen, I think Zach did a wonderful job breaking things down and talking about keeping up with trends and introducing a lot more fun to the equation. And so for me, I don't see the downside. I don't have a compelling argument to make against it. I'm not that much of a purist or a traditionalist that I can't watch a wide receiver wear the number 2 or a running back wear the number 12. Those things are inconsequential to me, and anything that signals the game is growing and more football and more interest, I'm all about it. So I don't see the downside at all. And so for that reason, I'm for it.
You know what? I think we're going to go 3 for 3, and I'm on board, right? I went from watching Charles Woodson, right, wearing the number 2, and then going to the NFL. I'm like, oh, well, who's Charles Woodson again? Mm-hmm. Now you get to see your players from collegiate level wearing the number that you associated with them playing college ball. So you can't go wrong with that. And furthermore, enough of the times of having to stick between, if you're a receiver, stick between the numbers of 80 to 89. Oh, that's cringy. And guys that retire, you can't touch their number. So now you're sitting here like, what's going on? Chase Young, he wants to wear number 2, right? So he had to make up an idea in his head to figure out 99, which is a wonderful number, by the way. But now, can you imagine Chase Young going back to number 2 as a lineman? Ooh-wee, I cannot wait. So this whole number change business, I'm for it. I think it makes the league more fun. And now you're not fighting for numbers anymore. You don't have to pay. Hey, can I pay for that jersey? There's going to be none of that. You get to choose whatever the hell you want. I'm all for it.
I know Stephon Diggs, and I like the way he approached it. He said, I'm not switching 14 because of all the hardworking people who have already bought my jersey. Thought that was a class act move on his part. Cool. I'm not going to lie, though, man. The number 1 is tough. If you're wearing number 1, that means you know damn well you are the best player on the field. There's a reason Cam Newton wore number 1 because he, in his mind, was the best player on the field. And if you're talking about one guy on the Buffalo Bills who could rock number 1 in style, it would be Stephon Diggs. And don't get me wrong, I already shelled out $110 on my Diggs jersey. I wasn't missing that opportunity. I'd buy a second one tomorrow if he was number 1. So I think in that scenario, I get the stance, but I got to tell you, I wouldn't have minded if Diggs went number 1. I think that'd be pretty cool.
That number 1 jersey, though, there's a lot of pressure. I don't know if everybody's ready and willing to go with number 1. Joe, if you're picking a player, Stephon Diggs aside, that could really represent that number 1 jersey. Number 1, who is that on the Bills?
It's Josh Allen.
Oh, I knew
you absolutely Josh Allen. I mean, would be sweet too. I know we like him wearing 17, and I like that. There's not a whole lot of guys that wear that number, and he can kind of have a legacy at 17. But if there's a guy that can do it, it's Josh. And I mean, that dude is asinine with what he does, right? Like in the pocket and stiff arming Aaron Donald and getting outside of structure and not caring about 300 pounds dudes coming at him and putting Kyle Van Noy's back into the turf. I mean, if you're going to wear number 1, you better be able to do that type of stuff. And so Josh Allen definitely has the athletic confidence and the alpha mentality to pull it off.
You know what? And the fact that you mentioned alpha mentality. Now, how sick would this be if Josh Allen changes his number to number 1 and has the visor on top of that? Oh. Game over. He's the toughest. He's the baddest man in Buffalo, let alone the NFL. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go on to the next proposal that's been put out there. And it's the Bills. The Buffalo Bills have put in a proposal to cease on hiring of coaches until after the Super Bowl. Joe, we're going to start with you. Are you on board with this? And what is the advantage and what is the disadvantage? And I'm going to put you on the spot here in terms of the disadvantage, but what are the pros and cons of having to hire after the Super Bowl?
I think it's the right move. I think you need to level the playing field. The problem is the coach that you hired is tied to the success of the team that they leave. And if you are going to wait on a coach that's going to play in the Super Bowl and allow all the other vacancies to be filled, which means all the assistant vacancies are filled, you're going to be at a major disadvantage. Think about the Miami Dolphins. They hired Brian Flores. They had to wait for him to finish the Super Bowl run with the Patriots. And then by the time they hired him, he didn't have his top choices for assistants. And look at that coaching staff. I mean, it's flipped. He's been through 2 offensive coordinators, 2 defensive coordinators, tons of assistants, and it's not because they're getting hired by other teams. He's just having to massage his staff and get the right mix of guys in there. And I don't think that should be the case. And I give Miami credit for being willing to wait for their guy, and I think Brian Flores is a good football coach, but I think you need to level this playing field and stop rewarding teams for making decisions earlier and punishing teams for their willingness to wait. And then on top of that, they don't get the right mix of assistants, and it puts their rebuild behind. And let's face it, if you fire your coach, you're probably rebuilding. And so I like this proposal, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Again, I don't see the downside on this.
Now, I'm going to put you on the spot. I want you to almost defend the case of not waiting till Super Bowl, not waiting. I want to hire my guy mid playoff. I want you to defend that for I guess organizations that say, no, I'm not waiting till Super Bowl. I want my guy right now.
Well, I guess it gives the advantage to the teams that desperately need a new coach. Obviously, if you're in that position, you're not in the playoffs, you have the advantage of getting your first pick because, unfortunately, for one reason or another, you wound up being in that position where you need to get the head coach. But Rico, I can't sit here and defend it. I'm in complete agreement with Joe. It does not make any sense why that is not already the case. Let's look at one of the biggest issues in the league right now. It's a lack of representation by African-American coaches at the head coaching position. I guarantee you right now, Leftwich, Todd Bowles, and Eric Bieniemy would be head coaches if it were not for that BS rule that is currently in place. Those 3 coaches were represented in the Super Bowl this year. Guarantee they would have gotten a job if it would have been after the Super Bowl hiring process. Back to the argument that you were kind of trying to have me make, the one benefit of it, I guess, is you could probably also argue that the Bills would not have their coaching staff fully implemented as it is right now if that rule was in place. After the AFC Championship, it's very likely that Brian Daboll would have probably gotten the job. Leslie Frazier might have as well. But when you look at it, when you're looking at it from a fairness standpoint, every team should be able to go out and hire a coach at a specific time where everybody has an equal advantage. I remember listening to the radio before the AFC Championship. Eric Bieniemy was taking interviews while he was preparing for the game. You cannot possibly manage that. And everybody knows Eric Bieniemy should be a head coach in this league. Patrick Mahomes has said it. Andy Reid has reiterated it numerous times. It's ridiculous at this point. But imagine having to deal with one of the biggest games of your career while also going after the biggest job opportunity of your career. It's an unfair ask. So the proposal the Bills are putting forward is absolutely fair, and not for nothing. People like us who talk about football, you also have a whole new news cycle to use to just talk about coaches. While we're talking about playoff football, we're not also talking about head coaching hiring linear to that. We have an entire offseason period before free agency where teams are going out and hiring these coaches. So to me, I think the NFL is all about getting the most notoriety possible, dominating the news headlines as much as possible. That just seems like another opportunity to do so. So back to Joe's point, all of the common sense points go towards moving with the Bills' proposal. I don't see anything to argue against it.
And you know what? I put you on the spot for a reason. There is nothing to argue about it. It is the sensible thing to do. You'll wait till the league is done, Super Bowl's done, everybody celebrates. Now everybody's in the same pool to pick out their head coach. Now you get to battle each other. Now you're not waiting for a team to sit there and have the advantage over top of you. If your organization is built properly, that head coach is going to go over there as opposed to one that, I guess that's the first opportunity I'm getting. I'm going to take it. So I'm with you guys. You guys are spot on. You guys are 3 for 3. Let's go. So final proposal that's out there. It's the overtime. Now, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it. Now, there's an overtime rule that I think it was the Eagles or the Ravens. One of those 2 teams, or I think they collaborated on there, but they're trying to change overtime period. Now, a lot of folks are saying, why don't we just adopt the college format and call it a day, right? Some people like the way the overtime format is right now. Now, what the Eagles, I believe the Eagles and Ravens are proposing is that one team decides where the ball is spotted. The other team decides if they want the ball or not, or something of that nature. So there's been back and forth as to what is the advantage and what's the disadvantage. So from what I've been reading, I could be wrong. You guys can jump in at any point here. Is if I've got the choice and I say I'm going to put the ball on the 1, right? Now the other team's like, all right, you want to put the ball in one, then you've got to travel 99 yards to see if you can get to the end zone or not. So now it figures out, it makes you choose strategically, where do I place the ball if I get the ball or not, or if I'm going to defend it, how am I going to do it? I kind of like the notion of it. What are your thoughts on it? Now, I hope I explained it correctly. Joe, I want you to jump on that.
Sounds confusing. Maybe it's, I mean, here's the thing, right? You play 60 minutes of football and you're tied. All right. In no scenario am I okay with there being ties in football. Why don't you just play another quarter? Just continue the game one more quarter, 15 minutes, and whoever has the lead after that wins the football game. Why should the strategy be different for winning a game in overtime than it is in regulation? It's not hockey. I don't get it. I just play another fully timed quarter, and I don't know. It makes that, to me, that makes the most sense to me. Just play another quarter of football.
See, and I think what they're trying to do is we've been doing this for so long. Let's try to change the game up. And I think that's I think the premise of it. But if you're going to change it up, make it make sense, make it be something that's simple. Like you said, add another quarter, whoever scores calls it a day. But what they're trying to, I think, avoid is having lengthy quarters with no score. Now what? You're into quarter number 2. Do you want to keep going, or do you end it as a tie? I don't think anybody wants to see it as a tie. Zach,
play to win the game.
Play to win the game. I get it.
And don't give me anything about player safety. If they cared about that, we're not playing the 17th game. So don't act like you're concerned about adding 15 more minutes a game.
Speak on it, Joe.
Say it with your chest.
Keep saying it. Zach, what do you think? You feel good about that one, or you just stick to the regular one quarter, call it a day, be done?
Let me rant here, because the first time I heard this, I almost crashed my car because I thought I was having a stroke. I couldn't understand what I was hearing. And then you just tried explaining it, and I tried to listen. I don't know what the hell you said. Here's what it comes down to.
I thought I had it down pat. Maybe not.
It's not an indictment against you, Rico. It's an indictment against the idea. If it's that confusing, how the hell do you expect the average fan to go into the overtime knowing what the hell is going on if we can't even understand it? There's 3 proposals on the board. That's what a lot of people aren't talking about. That's just one of them. The reason that's getting the most headlines is because it's the most different. It's adding another element of strategy to the game.
Right.
But in reality, it's just adding more confusion. And I think everybody is sort of getting onto that point. It really is just adding confusion. The other 2 on the table is going back to sudden death. I hate that, because now in the NFL, all it does is the game is predicated on offense. It is no longer based on defensive stops. So the team that wins the coin is automatically at the advantage, no matter what's going on. I always go back to the Patriots-Chiefs AFC Championship game. A back-and-forth game, grudge match, high scoring. Patrick Mahomes never touched that ball in overtime. The Patriots won the coin toss, went down the field, scored a touchdown. That's a similar indictment to the type of overtime we are playing currently. It's essentially still sudden death, just with a touchdown. So I appreciate the NFL trying to change, because they realize a change needs to be made. But going back to sudden death is just taking a step backwards.
Yep.
The best strategy that they have put forward is kind of what Joe was alluding to. It's an additional quarter, but it's 7.5 minutes instead of 15. Whoever's winning the game after that quarter wins. The thing I don't like about it, however, is that when the quarter ends, if it's still tied, it's a tie. The NFL is going to have to eliminate ties with the increase in gambling. Gambling is getting huge. It was just legalized in New York today. The NFL has to eradicate the ties because there's too much money involved with either side on these bets. So I guarantee you at some point, the tie is going to be eliminated for that reason. What's the automatic solution here? In my opinion, I saw you put it up earlier. It is the college platform. It is by far the best in all of football.
Easy.
Could you imagine how fun it would be? Bills Chiefs overtime, and the game comes down to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes getting possessions at the 25-yard line. I mean, we're talking about the highest entertainment value as well as the highest element of fairness. Both teams get a chance on offense. Both defenses get a chance to stop the opposing offense. It's more fair. It's more fun. All I know is right now something needs to change, because like I said earlier, I go back to the Chiefs-Patriots games. The Chiefs could have been in 3 consecutive Super Bowls if Patrick Mahomes just got a chance in overtime. Instead, of course, we all know how it ends. Tom Brady gets it. The rest is history. Something needs to change. The NFL is addressing that, but the spot and choose, I don't understand.
At the end of the day, what fans want to see and what the NFL has been trying to move the league into is to more scoring. Right, you're seeing more passing, and it's just high flying. That's what they want. They want seats. They want butts in the seats to watch this high scoring game. Right, a lot of the guys, I'm one of them. I like a nice defensive game. There's a little more for it for me. But high scoring games, that's what the NFL is made about. That's what it's about right now. So having that format would be money. But you know what? The NFL does not want to do anything the collegiate level is doing. They want to be different. They're not going to go and copy that. So they're going to try to find a way of differentiating themselves from the college game. But that is what it is. Now, you mentioned something about betting. Gambling is huge. You came across something the other day about what they have the Bills at the over and under. I want you to touch on that.
God. Yeah. You want me to get into that?
Get into that, man.
All right. I mean, you want to talk about like top tier comedy. 17 game season. The Bills are at 10.5 on the over under from Vegas. So if you're not a betting person, what that means is the Bills can lose 6 games and you still win the money on the over. I talked about this in my show the other day. I look at the Bills schedule, which on paper, and of course that doesn't mean anything, but on paper, as of right now, it is an easier schedule than last season. With an additional game, the Bills could lose 2 games from what their record was last year with an additional game and still cover that over. Not only did I find that interesting, they have the Patriots at 9. So Vegas is telling you they think the Patriots are about a game below the Bills, despite the fact the Patriots had a losing record last season and the Bills went 13-3. Obviously, the Patriots went out and spent a bunch of money. We know this. We also know that doesn't translate into wins throughout history. The blinders are still up on everybody anticipating this great comeback from Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Vegas knows what they're talking about a lot of the time in regard to getting you to put your money on something. So I found it very interesting that they have the Patriots at 9. I think it's free money with the Bills at 10.5. If you look at their schedule right now, please try and show me 6 losses. And if you do show me 6 losses, you're picking out 2 or 3 games where you're really going to have to sell me on them losing that game. So I don't know. I thought it was crazy.
Now, the one thing I find, and Joe, I need your input on this. Having the Bills at 10 wins and the Patriots at 9, are they that close in comparison as to what they're going to do this coming season?
Not if Cam Newton's a quarterback.
Thank you very much.
He plays like he did last year. I'm on record of saying that Cam Newton's the best dual threat quarterback in NFL history. So make no mistake about it. I really like Cam Newton. I had a front row seat to watching him here in Charlotte. But that's not 2015 Cam. That's not 2014. That's not 2016. That's a different player. If that guy's a trigger man for that offense, I don't see a course. I think they'll be a better football team, and that should be expected. They had 90 or not 90. That's the second most cap space in the NFL. Like
around there, yeah.
This was we expected them to go out and spend. I mean, Bill Belichick is chasing Don Shula's record for all-time wins. He can't do that by embracing a responsible rebuild for the New England Patriots. He had to go spend that money, or else he's going to be going on 6-7 win teams in the twilight of his career while Brady's winning Super Bowls in Tampa Bay. If we're going to getting a pissing contest about legacy, you can't do that. So the only thing that Belichick has to cling to as he approaches his 70s is getting Don Shula's record, because if Brady, and he's already done one, he's already got 1 Super Bowl in Tampa Bay.
Right.
If that continues, the argument's going to really not be looking good for Bill Belichick when we talk about who's responsible for that dynasty.
I'm telling you right now, folks, if the Patriots come in and are close in comparison to the Bills, it's going to be an exciting AFC East, because we're not sleeping on the Dolphins over here, because the Dolphins, they surprised us with 5 wins a couple years back. And then they came in last year, they had 10 wins?
They got the Jets at 6.5, which I thought was also very shocking.
Wow.
Listen,
6.5 is that is a 5-game leap if you're taking the over.
What that tells you is that they believe in that head coach. They believe in the turnaround that Saleh is going to be doing in the Jets. And I don't know what their schedule is like, but if they feel that the schedule is weak enough that maybe Zach Wilson's the quarterback, and I bet you they made those odds as Sam Darnold is being the quarterback. So who knows what they're gonna what that's gonna look like with Zach Wilson at the helm. Now let's switch gears. Now we're gonna go right into Bills talk, and this is what this show is about. Let's get right into it. So, folks, there's a standard that, in my opinion, and I think we all agree on that, there's a standard that McDermott has brought to Buffalo, and that's a winning mentality. That's a playoff caliber team that is defending the dirt, all the mantras, all the sayings that Coach McDermott has brought to Buffalo. Now, there's going to be some pressure on McDermott. And Joe, I want you to jump on this. How much pressure is there going to be on McDermott coming into this year, knowing full well what the Dolphins are doing, what the Jets have done with new coaching, and they're trying to turn things around, and Bill Belichick saying, I will not have a losing season again. I need to bring that. What is it that McDermott has to now do to keep his team on top and making sure that their mind frame is legit?
Can you hear Sean McDermott right now saying, pressure is a privilege, right? And he's going to say something like that here in one of these press conferences coming up. Obviously, the bar's high, right? I mean, this is an AFC Championship team from a year ago, and I really appreciate Brandon Beane's comments in the year-end presser when he said, we're not a Super Bowl team. It leads you to know and understand that the Bills know that they're not done doing what they need to do to their roster and their overall football operation to get to the big game. And I think everything that we've seen from this regime since they took charge in 2017 has been incremental progress. And there's not a whole lot, there's not much further to go, guys. I mean, they were a game away from playing in the Super Bowl. And so I think that they have enough self-awareness to know that exactly the things that you talked about, that there's tons of draft capital. When you look at the Jets and Dolphins, tons of cap space with all of those teams. They're better, right? They're improved football teams. But now it's about taking the role of being the hunted, right? The Bills have been the hunter for a long time. All right, now they're the hunted. Everyone's going to give them their best shot. They want to knock off the Bills at the top of the AFC East, and Sean McDermott's aware of that. And I think these are the times, and I say this a lot as I work through game weeks on Locked On Bills, and we talk about the opponents that are coming up and some of the challenges, and you might get concerned about it. And I say all the time, like, these are the moments that I'm really glad that Sean McDermott's the leader for this football team, because he's the type of guy that is going to have the right messaging, that's going to keep the guys disciplined and focused on the task at hand. And he's proven that. The incremental improvements have been there. And so I think this goes back to trusting the leadership, the self-awareness that they've already shown through their messaging, and then adding some wrinkles. And maybe that's more 12 personnel on offense. Maybe that's more versatility with their sub packages on defense. But, I think that self-awareness, the leadership, and the fact that they're being chased right now puts them at a position of strength to be more dynamic and switch things up in terms of developing their operation to stay at the top.
I really like that. You said that there's the fact that they're being hunted allows them to now dial even further and dig your heels in, because now they're coming. So that's going to be the message that McDermott is going to be lamenting onto these guys. So ZBOT, when you're looking at this offensive side of the ball, you're looking at the defensive side of the ball, you're looking at special teams, and you're looking at all these position groups. Is there a position group that worries you? Joe, I'm going to go right to you afterwards. But is there a position group, ZBOT, that worries you a little bit, where you're like, one player goes down in that position group, we are in the doghouse. We're in problems. What position group is sitting at the top for you right now?
Well, for starters, Joe, get pressure as a privilege patented right now. That seems like the most McDermott-ism ever. I could already see them switching out the championship caliber decals on the wall to pressure as a privilege before the season started. That was perfect. It's D-line. I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, we saw what wound up being the main Achilles heel for the Bills in the AFC Championship. They couldn't get near Mahomes no matter what the Chiefs threw at him, no matter what they did on defense. It was not working. 2 weeks later in the Super Bowl, we saw what can happen to even the greats like Mahomes when they're faced against elite D-line talent. He ran for 500 yards behind the line of scrimmage in that game. 2 weeks prior against the Bills, he looked like Patrick Mahomes. It was a completely different team from the Bills to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bills right now just feel like they're a star-powered edge player away from really being a complete team. It feels like that one piece that would really bring them over the top. The problem was in the offseason here. It's just too expensive. That position is getting up there it's the quarterback of the defensive side of the ball. It's a really expensive position. The Bills didn't have the money to spend in free agency, but it's clearly the position right now that they need if they want to get up to that level. It's what won the Bucs the Super Bowl. Yes, Tom Brady was the biggest factor and the biggest storyline. That defensive performance by the Bucs in the Super Bowl was one of the greatest I have ever seen, and it started right up there at the line. And I think right now, if I were to pick one specific area that visibly to just about anybody needs to be addressed, it's the line. And I think when you're talking about that position, it's what separates the Bills from the top 5 teams in the NFL conversation to about the top 2 or 3 teams in the NFL conversation.
So you want to address, you feel like our weakest position group is the D line. And I didn't anticipate you saying that. Keep that same energy, because now I'm going to go down to the draft guru himself. There he is. What position group worries you, where you're like, I don't know, fam. If something happens in that position group and somebody goes down, it's a wrap.
Well, first of all, if I can give credit to Billie Jean King, she has that quote. She wrote a book called Pressure is a Privilege, former #1 tennis player in the world. And I think she won 39 Grand Slams? Yeah, 39 Grand Slam titles. So she's the one that gets credit for that. Pressure is a privilege. Yeah. So the way that you frame that question, Rico, it leads me to want to talk about positions that I think lack depth. And then if the primary starter went down, you would get real nervous. And I think the low-hanging fruit is quarterback, even with Mitchell Trubisky in the mix. I mean, it's a different football team without Josh Allen. The position group that I think lacks the most depth right now is safety. And I know that we look at safety as a position of strength with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. That's a top 3 safety duo in the NFL. But that security blanket of Dean Marlowe, he's unsigned right now. Now, I expect at some point he'll be back. But until that happens, I'm going to be nervous about safety depth, where your primary backup right now is Jaquan Johnson, a third-year player out of the University of Miami, who's a good football player in terms of, like, you like him as a depth player, special teams. But as a primary starter, when safeties are so critical to your defense and how you disguise coverages and how you affect the way that quarterbacks survey your defense and the deep throws that Poyer and Hyde take away, I would be real nervous right now with the way that depth chart stacks up at safety, with Jaquan Johnson as the primary backup and Josh Thomas as the 4th safety right now.
Listen when I tell you this, I'm smiling, I'm geeked, because not a whole lot of people are talking about the safety position. It's something that I've glanced over, not one that I was going to mention, but the safety position is something that I feel that is necessary. And we tried to address that last year with Kyle Duggar. I think we were interested in Kyle Duggar because that way he almost masked our depth at linebacker, and he can play a little bit of depth. We didn't get that opportunity to have that, right? So we've been kind of looking around to fill that role. Maybe this draft is where we do it. Where we do it is a whole nother ballgame. For me, sir, it is the O-line. And I'm not beaming. I'm not beaming with excitement about my O-line. We've been shuffling this O-line for too long, in my opinion, where we feel one guy goes down, we're not sure about this guy. I mean, next year we go in and Darrell Williams goes down, right? Now we're sitting here like, okay, who do we put at right tackle? Do we put Cordy Ford back at right tackle? No, don't do that. Our center goes down. Now John Feliciano moves over. We just don't have enough depth, in my opinion, with enough talent to move there. Ryan Bates, lovely piece, nice guy. I think he'd do well, but just not that guy. So for me, the interior line is what I'm looking forward to. Now, keeping that energy, I need to play a clip for you, sir. You don't know what clip is coming up, and I want your live reaction as to how you feel about it. So hang tight, and we'll be right back.
Several evaluators about why Cody Ford had fallen from the first round to the second round. The reason is because in 2017, he played at about 25 pounds over the weight he did in 2018. So yes, he played well this year. The tape from 2 years ago was really bad. Plus teams thought he was a lot better than he actually was. Some attitude questions there too. That's maybe why he fell.
So I don't know if you heard that all the way through. So I want you're processing now. As you process, here's where I jump in. I want Cody Ford to succeed. In my opinion, it might be harsh, but I feel like he's a borderline bust. It might be too soon for me to label him that. I know that. That's why I was looking for film online. It's okay. Let me try to get myself into it. And then I came across that clip. Then I realized, like, hold on a second. He had 1 year of right tackle. He did well. He had a couple years at guard, or excuse me, interior line, but he had also a broken fibula. So there was not much time, right? Raw prospect, if you will. And I could be wrong. I'm no draft guy. So when I see this clip and I look at what's happening right now, then I'm like, a pause for concern. But at the end of the day, you still have to give this guy an opportunity because he hasn't had a full opportunity yet to really anchor in a position. So what say you on that clip and then on the topic of Cody Ford?
Well, as far as that clip goes, I mean, Rappaport citing bad tape 2 years prior to being drafted in weight issues. As far as I understand, the weight stuff hasn't been a problem with the Bills. We would know, I think. We certainly did with AJ Epinesa. But as far as Cody Ford goes, it certainly sounds like the team loves him. I mean, you listen to Brandon Beane, he all but said he would be surprised if Cody Ford wasn't one of their starting offensive linemen this year. And from a talent perspective, I certainly get that. I think it's okay to simultaneously say, I'm optimistic about Cody Ford and his ability to be a good starter at left guard, while at the same time saying, I'm nervous because I don't think we've really learned anything about Cody Ford. We know that he's not going to be a right tackle. That's not going to be his natural spot. So he kicks inside the guard this past year, and I don't think we've seen a large enough sample size to really make hard statements about who he is in the NFL at this point. It's kind of concerning entering year 3, especially when we know he played injured as a rookie at right tackle, not his best position. And last year he got, a season-ending injury, and we only saw him for, a limited amount of games. So I don't think we know much about Cody Ford. And this is a critical year for him to change that narrative, to entrench himself as the starting left guard for this football team, or push the panic button and realize that you got to find a different direction here.
And I hope it really is the first comment you made, that he comes in and dials in and puts it together. What a disappointment it would be for pushing the panic button and now trying to figure out what we're going to do and trying to, would you say, replace Cody Ford when we traded up for him in the second round. But we don't have enough on him yet. And that's why that's keeping me open to having seen some success from our guy, Cody Ford. I got a comment coming in from Mike Denisco. He says, got to improve the O-line on the inside, both left and right, and run blockers. Can't keep rotating our guys that we are paying so much money for. I mean, the beauty of having depth is when one guy goes down, you got to be able to next man up. That's what it is. Do you want to keep doing that? Obviously not. But I think we all agree that our line play could improve. Zach, I'm going to go ahead.
I want to chime in on the super chat there.
Yes.
I had Marcel Louis-Jacques from ESPN. I had a conversation with him a couple weeks ago, and he said something that I'm surprised I didn't know, right? Like this didn't resonate with me until he said it. Preferred 5 offensive linemen never took a single snap together, not at any point. You look at left to right, Dawkins, Ford, Morse, Feliciano, Williams. We never saw that unit together, not for a training camp practice, not for a game. And they brought them all back. The team obviously believes that they have the right mix up front, and I'm going to reserve judgment until we actually get to see what that group of 5 looks like up front, because we know Brandon Beane, ever since that 2018 season where he said it, he failed the team by not having the right mix up front, not having depth. And ever since that, and even continuing this year, he is building offensive lines that feature plenty of veteran depth, so much so that he's been able to trade guys like Marshall Newhouse and Russell Bodine that he was going to cut and get draft capital back for him. So he's putting his money where his mouth is, right, with this offensive line depth thing. And we've seen that with Jamil Douglas and Bobby Hart and Jordan Devey, and they had LaRaven Clark in for a visit. So he's prioritizing this, but at the end of the day, we haven't seen the Bills' 5 best offensive linemen play together yet.
Can those 5 be formidable? Can they be a unit to reckon with that unit? Those 5. Dawson, excuse me, you got me say Dawson. You got me Deion Dawkins, Cody Ford, Mitch Morse, Feliciano, and D-Dub. Can that be a formidable group?
I think it's universally accepted right now. This isn't a hot take. They're an upper echelon pass blocking unit. I don't think anyone's going to debate that, right? So the most important thing you need your offensive line to do, pass block, they do it at a high level. That's a great thing. You look at all these players, I don't really have concerns that they can create movement in the run game. Independently, I've watched these players. I've studied these players. They can do it. It's about getting everything working together, right? You're blocking, having the right scheme, your running backs. I mean, all of this has to come together in concert for the run game to be more effective. I think the Bills need to figure out what type of run offense they want to be. You saw a big fundamental shift from 2019 to 2020 in terms of man gap blocking to zone runs. So they got to figure out what they want this run offense to be. And I think more than talent at offensive line or running back, it's lasering in on schematically what's going to work and getting the timing and gelling down so that you can execute effectively in the run game.
You guys can both answer this in terms of the most important that I guess failed us between these three things: scheme, lineman, running back. Zach, I'll start with you.
Well, it's funny you asked that question because I was just listening to Joe, and I just, it kind of was like an epiphany because I keep coming back to all season. I kept coming back to this confusion of how are they so dominant in the pass blocking department, but when it comes to running the ball, it's just non-existent. So when you ask that question, and we saw what Devin Singletary was capable of 2 seasons ago, and we know that that capability is there with the same coaching staff, right? And the same pieces. You have to figure it does come down to schematics, like Joe was just alluding to. It seemed like it was kind of pushed to the wayside. The running game was so non-existent. Josh Allen was so dominant. It seemed throughout the course of the year that that's just the way that they were going to try to win football games. And we saw it in the playoffs. Josh Allen was the leading rusher by almost 100 yards throughout the playoffs. So the run game, it just confused the hell out of me all year. When they did try to do it, it didn't work, but no defense respected it throughout the year. It came down to the point where nobody anticipated the Bills to run. When they did, it was non-effective. So it's a great question that you ask. I don't know if there's necessarily a solidified answer at this moment. And the weird thing that I keep coming to is I don't think it is necessarily the position of running back, because we have seen success from Devin Singletary. Right. And we've seen flashes of what Zach Moss is capable of. Even TJ Yeldon, we've seen flashes there. So I think it's a mixture of different things. But the run game itself last year was far and away the biggest issue the Bills offense had. And to pinpoint exactly what that issue is seems like a Rubik's Cube right now for all of Bills fans.
So here's one thing that I will say, though. Chemistry is big, and there lacked chemistry. Like Joe alluded to what Marcel Louis-Jacques mentioned, none of those guys ever had a chance to be together as one full unit. So it lacks chemistry, and we don't have the chemistry, and there's always a rotating player. How do you build chemistry? So we'll chalk it up to let these guys marinate together, let them build something with one another healthy, and maybe we see a different run scheme, run ability this year, because we all know there's some ability on both the O-line. There are some great guys on the O-line. There's some ability at the offensive line, in the running back room, and we all know that Dable is a hell of an offensive coordinator. It's just a matter of putting the chemistry together and making it happen. Now, I will ask you guys this. This goes for both of you guys. 3 position groups that you guys can make a case for drafting at 30. Joe, I'm going to start with you. 3 position groups.
Yeah,
you can make a case.
The 3 that stand out to me above all of them, I'm not sure I'm going to put them in order because I think it depends on which players are available at those positions. But in no particular order, my 3 are defensive end, where the team needs to get younger and better. I mean, you're talking about your 2 starters. Jerry Hughes is 33. Mario Addison is 32. You have AJ Epinesa in the mix, and certainly I think he can develop into a starter. F.A. Obata is on a 1-year deal. So you got to get younger and better there. And it's a premium position. And I think we can all acknowledge that the Bills have to do a better job rushing the passer off the edge. Number 2 is cornerback, where Tre'Davious White's obviously entrenched as your starting CB1, one of the elite players in the NFL. But opposite of him is Levi Wallace, who we know what he is. We know what the floor is with Levi Wallace, but we can also understand that there's limitations that come with it. And he's only on a 1-year deal, very modest, contract. And so I don't think he's necessarily entrenched as the long-term option. And I certainly look at him as an upgradable player for this team. And the third spot, and maybe you're going to think this is crazy, is wide receiver. I am in on the idea of the Bills targeting a wide receiver at pick 30. And the reason is because this is a wide receiver centric offense.
Hold on, Joe. Can I? Because you're about to get into something right now. So usually when someone's about to get into something, Zach knows where this is going.
Oh boy.
The floor is yours. Receiver at 30. Let's go. You better talk on it.
The Buffalo Bills offense is wide receiver centric. 10 personnel, 11 personnel at a minimum, 3 and 4 wide receivers on the field all the time. Part of what made Josh Allen an elite NFL quarterback last year and a top 3 NFL MVP candidate is because he had a full complement of wide receivers to throw the football to. And this year, you're not really concerned about it. You've got Diggs, you've got Sanders, you've got Gabriel Davis, you got Cole Beasley. You got some players behind them in Isaiah McKenzie and Tanner Gentry and Isaiah Hodgins is coming back. You like what you have. But flash forward 1 year, and you have Emmanuel Sanders. He's already 34 years old. His contract's up. I don't think he's a long-term option. You have Cole Beasley, who's an aging slot receiver that has only 1 more year left on his deal after this season. If I'm the Buffalo Bills, I am staying ahead of this curve, and I'm going to make sure that Josh Allen always has 4 receivers that are good that he can throw the football to, because that's part of the engine that makes this offense go. And so I want to get ahead of that. And I'm not trying to introduce guys that year I need them to catch 60, 70, 80 balls. I want to go ahead and get them in the mix now. So that way when Sanders is gone and when Beasley is gone, Josh Allen already has that chemistry. They can line up in multiple spots and continue to make this offense hum.
Do you see this, sir?
I do.
Let's go. Joe is saying, he's not saying draft a receiver at 30. The question was to make a case for 3 position groups that you could draft at 30. So receiver happens to be one of them. And I'm not mad at that. He gave a great explanation as to why. You want to keep your prized possession happy. That is Josh Allen. If you keep giving him bums, you guys have heard me say it, like Benjamin Biscuit. You guys already know what I'm talking about. Kelvin Benjamin. You want to give him Andre Holmes. You want to give him a whole bunch of bums, Zay Jones. You know what I mean? You're not going to have success because these guys cannot give Allen what he wants. And that's getting open. That's getting separation. That's catching the ball, right? The drop rates were beyond ridiculous, right? Now we have guys that are actually taking the ball in. So receiver at 30, I mean, is bold, but it's not out of the question. Because Bean is in a position right now, he can go anywhere he wants to. Best player available. And if it happens to be a receiver, so be it. So be it. Zach, talk to me.
I think there's a luxury in having this late pick. We are not used to picking this late. Throughout my lifetime, the latest the Bills would pick would most likely be the early 20s. There's a weird luxury, and you guys both alluded to it, in being at this position, is you can just take the best player available. When it comes down to those late first-round picks, that usually says your team is in a place where they have the pieces surrounding them to have success to get you into that draft pick in the first place. So a lot of the times that is what makes sense. It's also the reason why the Bills could inevitably wind up trading down. There certainly would be a team or two wanting to come back into the first round to get a guy. The Bills move back. Not only do they get their guy in the second round, they also would have to pay him less money. So that, of course, is on the table. I wouldn't be shocked at all. But I don't hold a candle to Joe, obviously, in the draft analysis. And for guys like me, I just find comfort in knowing that I have the utmost confidence in absolutely anything Brandon Beane does. I'm going into this draft with an I don't care attitude because I have the confidence that whatever Brandon Beane does will be for the betterment of this team. And I have absolutely no reason not to think that. The offseason that he has had, keeping the players around, last year bringing in Diggs, this regime has revitalized this franchise beyond a place I think most of us a handful of years ago could not even have dreamt of getting to. And back to what we were talking about McDermott and what he has to do to dial in. He just has to keep being McDermott, and Bean just has to keep being Bean. It's got him to this point, and as Joe alluded to, incrementally getting better every year, and that's exactly what they've done. But when I look at the three positions that you can make an argument for, it's kind of similar to what Joe was saying in the wide receiver department. I'd say tight end. I think we've seen what Dawson Knox is capable of, and I don't hate Dawson Knox at all. And he's shown flashes of, electrifying play. He's a fun guy. I have love for Dawson Knox, but I think we've seen that he's not going to be that guy that elevates the Bills offense to perhaps what a Chiefs offense is with Travis Kelce. Now, don't get me wrong. Travis Kelce, George Kittle, they're not standing on the side of the road waiting for somebody to get picked up. I mean, those guys are rarities, and they elevate an offense beyond any other offense in the league. When you have a stout tight end, it completely changes everything. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Bills went with Freiermuth out of Penn State if he was there at 30. I know we just got Jacob Hollister as a veteran role, but to me, it looks like a position that if the Bills could land a surefire tight end one, a guy that is going to perhaps take them to the next level on offense, why not roll the dice in that department at pick 30? Then obviously edge, I think we're all in agreement there. It's just the one position where we all can sit down, have a meeting of the minds and say, yeah, edge position is clearly of need for the Buffalo Bills. If there is a player that Bean likes at the position at 30, no sense in wasting the pick on anybody else. Go with that position in the edge department. I'll make the argument for running back. And I know it's a real touchy subject,
Zachary,
amongst Bills fans, right? It's either you absolutely love it or you absolutely hate it. The reason I want to make the argument is because I'm in neither of those camps. I'm dead set in the middle. I am fine if the Bills go running back because that tells me that what they've seen out of their running back core right now is just not good enough. The Bean knows that team better than we do. If they look at that core and think it's worth spending the 30th pick on a running back, then so be it. Look at our running back room right now. Despite what's happened years prior, we have two third-round picks and an undrafted free agent now in Breda, right? We have yet to experience this Bills offense with a surefire first-round running back, whether that be Najee Harris, whether that be ETN. It doesn't matter to me as long as it winds up happening, because if it does, I'm losing my train of thought here, but to wrap it up, what it tells me is if they go with that position at 30, they think that they're an elite running back away from taking their offense over the top, and what they currently have isn't going to get them there. So I wouldn't love it. I wouldn't hate it. I'm smack dab in the middle in the department of if that's where they think they need to go at pick 30 and they can get a guy like Etienne or Najee Harris, I wouldn't hate it like a lot of people online seem to be clamoring left and right. I understand why you wouldn't love it, because we all know that drafting a running back in the first round a lot of the time isn't necessary. But it's not like you're drafting Saquon Barkley at pick 2. We're talking about pick 30 here. It's not like you're trading up to get a guy. And if they feel like if a Najee Harris or a Travis Etienne falls to them at 30 and that's their best option, they can experiment with this offense with a surefire running back one. It's something we haven't seen yet. So I wouldn't rule it out, and I think you can make the argument.
I respect it. I disagree with it, but I respect it. I will read a super chat coming in from Ismael Manero. Dámelo. He says, I've been saying this, Kadarius Toney at 30 can play inside and outside and keeps a stud away from KC. Give Josh Allen as much ammo as possible. So I think, listen, Joe, I think you just pushed the needle and you got everybody now going to change up TDN. Now they're going to start going 30 at receiver at 30. So thank you for that. So now you just screwed up everybody's thing now. They're all going to be all over the place.
That was a great point, though. I mean, you're thinking future, which I think is awesome. A lot of times you think about the now when you're getting into this draft period, but you made some great points, Joe. I would not have put together, the aging of Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders. When you're thinking down the line like that, you're 100% right. Josh Allen is who he is because of the guys around him. So I never thought about it, but it made a lot of sense.
You will have comments like this coming from my guy Scott Blake that says we hardly run. So why blow a first round pick on an RB?
Well, maybe we hardly run because they don't feel confident in what they have. But as Joe said, I don't know. Do we know for certain what the issue is behind the running game? Right. To me,
For sure, and that is a whole different ball game. That's a whole different ball game. Now, we're gonna keep that needle moving. Now, I'm gonna jump in and say my piece. I'm with you guys. Defensive end, we have two. I hate to use aging, but we have two seasoned veterans on the ends. I think that's the best way to put it. And we could use some depth, some youth. On the end, we have Bam Johnson that's coming into his own. We don't know what he is just yet. Epinesa lost a little weight, a little too much weight. He's got to put the weight back on, but he gained a lot of experience in that regard. I still am looking for Mike Love to come in and do something, but he might just be a little bit of depth. We don't know just yet. However, the D-line is something that I'd be looking forward to seeing that makes us put pressure on the opposing quarterback. Next thing, O-line. O-line, I'm big on that. I'd like to see, I'm one of those guys that loves to see a great run game, a nice balanced game. Airing the ball out is fantastic. I get it. But when you need to put time on the clock and run it out and you can't do it, and now you got to give the ball back to the opposing offense, this is where I cringe. I want to be able to milk clock when you have to. But when your offense is potent and scoring 30 points a game, how can I sit here and complain about it? But I am. Here I am. So, thirdly, I like the cornerback position, man. You lock down your receivers. It gives our seasoned vets enough time to get to the quarterback. I mean, Jerry Hughes is one of the highest pressured rated defensive ends in the game. So you lock down that receiver a little longer, that pressure turns into a sack. Mario Addison is coming off a five sack season. I think he wants to prove himself that, hey, just because I'm 33, 34 years old doesn't mean I'm out of it. I can still hold my own. So having a corner might do it, might make a huge difference. Now, switching gears, we're not going to stay too long on this. So we're looking at the positions, and we're going to go right into running back talk just slightly. And I just want a yes or no answer. Are you guys okay with the three running back head of Moss, Singletary, and Breida? And who is your RB1, RB2, RB3? I'm going to go to my guy, Zach, and then Joe right after.
It basically just comes back to the argument that I made. I'm fine with it. Like if we don't make a move at running back in the draft, I'm fine with it. If we do, I'm fine with it because that's kind of what's going on in the running back locker room right now. It's not great. It's not pitiful. It just kind of is what it is. There needs to be some sort of improvement there. So
RB1, RB2, RB3. What do you got?
I would stick with Singletary at 1, but although I could see him swapping them with Moss. I really could. And then what is Matt Breida going to bring to the table? I don't know. People forget he's still young. He was drafted in 2017. It's a fairly young group of running backs. So I don't know. He could come in and make some waves. I don't know. What I do know is I've seen some greatness out of Devin Singletary. I have. It just wasn't there last year. But I remember just being blown away with him a couple years ago for what they got out of him value-wise in the third round. I thought it was terrific. It obviously fell off last year, but what increased? The throwing game dramatically. So It was an even trade-off for sure. But a lot of what I'm seeing in the comments here is nailing it. The Bills just need an above competent running game to continue to elevate their throwing game. They just have to have a running game that's respectable. They really didn't have that last year. They don't have to have an elite running game. It's not necessary with how good their passing offense is. If they can just find a way, whether we were talking about earlier, schematically, on the line, or at the position, to elevate that run game just so it's respectable, it opens up a lot more for Josh Allen. So I still think they're going to wind up going with Singletary. Even though I made the argument for running back, I don't see it happening.
Okay.
So I think that's going to wind up being the three-headed monster going into next year, and I would assume that Singletary remains the starter.
There we go. Joe, RB1, RB2, RB3.
So the first question was, am I okay with this running back room? Yes, I am.
Correct.
It's fine with me.
Me too.
As far as 1, 2, and 3, I mean, I guess it's Singletary, Breida, Moss for me, but don't read too much into that list because I think they all do different things. You know, Devin Singletary, I don't necessarily want him as my primary receiving back. I want to do that more with Breida and Moss. Moss is my best pass protector of the group. Breida is my best perimeter run. So I don't really, the order doesn't matter. It's how you use them. And to me, I can find the best way to get the most out of them by using them differently. So you can get caught up in the order that I said, but I just want to use them in the ways that they can best help the team.
And you know, I'm not going to disagree with that because I mean, it's the universal answer. We want to use all three of them to their best abilities. One's a perimeter runner, one's an inside runner, one's the guy that's going to make you miss, right? But playing any role, the more touches, the more time, the more contact you get on the field, the more you tend to get a sense for the game, right? So having these guys go in 7-8 touches each, you never get a good feel for the game. You need a clear-cut RB1, whether that guy's getting 12, 13 touches and the other guy's getting 8, at least he gets a little bit more time on the field. So to me, Moss becomes number 1. I felt the trend happening already in the season. Moss goes down 4 games. Singletary didn't really do much for us. So it showed that, okay, he clearly isn't the guy to take over. So now entering back Moss started getting more touches near the end of the season. So I see a transition going. So Moss being RB1, obviously Breida and Singletary will then battle for RB2 because it's all about touches. Because you know who's the main guy touching the ball, and that's Josh Allen. Either he's running the rock or he's throwing the rock. So the amount of touches that these guys get is going to be very important. And I feel 5'10", 220 pounds, he's built for this game. So I think that he's going to be our RB1 guy going, and I'm fine with it. I don't need to draft anybody else. I think we're good. Now, we're going to change gears a little bit, fellas. We're an hour in, and I want to try to get your opinion on something. So looking at this current offense, name a former running back, not named Thurman, not named O.J. Simpson, that you would insert on this team right now that you feel would be the best fit. Not O.J. Simpson, not Thurman Thomas. Joe Marino, you go first.
Tough choice between Sean Bryson and Jonathan Linton. You know, those kidding. I'm kidding.
You got me.
I was about to throw Joe Burns into the mix, Tayshard choice, but all right.
There you go. You almost got me.
The answer is Fred Jackson.
Okay.
Number one, I think the reason number one, and I know this sounds silly, but he's the best pass blocker. And I think that matters a lot with the style of offense that the Bills want to run. You know, a lot of 10 personnel, and you want that guy that can pick up the pressure. And Fred Jackson was exceptional at pass blocking, and he's a really good receiving back. So yes. I went with the running back that I thought affected the passing game the most. And I get that from Fred Jackson, as both a pass blocker and receiver, and he's a return guy, right? So he can do the punt returns, he can do the kick returns. So to me, it's just a very natural addition to the football team. And then, oh, by the way, he's a good runner too. Like he can run inside. He's patient. He cuts well. He's physical. Like, I mean, to me, he's the perfect running back for this Buffalo Bills team.
I like that. Now, before I get to Zach, I'm gonna read this super chat from my guy Jeff King. What's going on, Jeff? He says, listen, with today's speed and talent in the receivers, the D-backs and safeties can only hold them for so long. We need a legitimate pass rush. And you know what? I think Jeff King feels a pass rush is necessary at pick 30. And brother, I ain't mad at you because Lord knows we didn't get enough pressure on quarterbacks last season. So if we do go ahead and get ourselves a Phillips or whoever at that pick, hey, listen, it's only better for this offense. Zach, we're going to switch gears. Let's go to you. A running back that you would insert onto this offense on this current team that you feel that would be the best fit, not Thurman, not OJ. Who you got?
Well, I think Joe hacked into my computer and stole my show notes because he basically ran down the list as I was looking at him. It's no doubt Fred Jackson. He might be my favorite Bill of all time. I think during the drought, he was the guy you tuned in to watch. Fred Jackson was the most entertaining player throughout a long period of the drought. He was by far my favorite player, and one of them for a variety of different reasons. But one thing, if you watch my show, if you listen to me often, the one thing I always hammer home is the Bills culture and how it's different than anyone else's in the NFL. Fred Jackson embodied Buffalo. He just represented Buffalo in the way that the team currently does. This team is the epitome of culture. And I think Fred Jackson would fit in perfectly with this team right now. And then for all the reasons that Joe mentioned, he's an excellent receiver out of the backfield. His running ability, there was a multitude of different ways he ran the ball. Not only was he quick, he was a tough tackle. It was tough to get Fred Jackson down. So he brought a lot of different elements to the table. And when you couple that together with the culture fit that I think he would share with Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, and the rest of the players, if I could pick one guy out of anybody, I think, to put into this Bills offense right now, it would be Fred Jackson. I've always loved him. He will always be one of my favorite Bills. And to have a prime Fred Jackson right now on this team would be extraordinary. It would be awesome stuff.
I'm going through the comment section, and here's one thing that I will say: the Bills have had a slew of running backs that have been fantastic. You put them onto the field. You name Travis Henry. Henry had his great moments. LaShawn McCoy, Fred Jackson, and I'm a big fan of Fred Jackson. Willis McGahee. I mean, I can go on, but to me, there are two names that I battled with. So I'm going to say both. I'm sorry, I got to say both. One of them is LaShawn McCoy. You put a LaShawn McCoy back into the lineup like this, that can go outside, that can go inside, that can shake and bake and make things happen. LaShawn McCoy would be a perfect fit for this type of offense. But the one name that stood out to me that I think that would be well, especially with how we ran the ball, would be Marshawn Lynch. You put Marshawn Lynch in this type of offense where he can pass block, he can catch out of the backfield, and return. I don't know about returning the ball, but when you want nastiness, you want those 1 or 2 yards to kind of get the offense going again and move the sticks. A guy like Marshawn Lynch would be quite nice. But listen, any answer you give us is going to be great. Fred Jackson, I love Fred Jackson, man. Like he could do it all. And the guy, you can't count him out. He was in a backfield with C.J. Spiller, Marshawn Lynch, and he was the last man standing. Right. So good on Fred Jackson. So last segment of the show, fellas, and we're gonna bring the topic of receiver. And there are prototypical receivers, right? You've got your speed guy, you know what I mean? Your D-Jacks, get downfield, you know what I'm saying? Your Tyreek, your Tyreeks, you have those guys of the world that are there. Then you've got your possession guy. You've got your red zone guy. You've got your gadget guy, your routes guy. All he does is run routes. He's crazy like that. And then you have your alpha receiver. That's the guy that he does it all. You go to him all day, every day. So looking at the receivers that we have on our team right now, who fills what role, right? Who is that guy? Who is our route guy? Who's our speed guy? So, Joe, I'm going to start with you with this one. What role does each receiver on our team play? And I'm talking about the top guys on our squad, right? I'll to kind of get the ball rolling. You got your Diggs, your Gabe, your Isaiah, McKenzie, Cole Hodgins. So I'll let you jump on there. And where do they stand for you?
Okay, so this is interesting. I guess the speed guy, I'm not sure that they have a true like take the roof off the defense type guy. I mean, they have speed. Diggs is fast. McKenzie is fast. But I mean, they don't have like a sole field stretcher. There's not a Deshaun Jackson in this group. I think their best vertical receiver is Diggs. And that's not all he does, but I think he's the best. If I'm going to run a 9 route or a double move, I'm probably going to use Diggs to do that. As far as the possession guy, oh man. The possession guy probably is Gabriel Davis. Just because I like his size and ball skills. He gives you the best chance to do that. The red zone guy, you know, to me, I think we get hung up on this red zone stuff. Like there's these weird things that we believe in that, like, because you're tall, you're good in the red zone. Like, getting open is what matters in the red zone, just like it does in the other 80 yards on the field. So which guy gets open the best? Diggs. So Diggs is the red zone guy to me. The gadget guy, that's easy. Isaiah McKenzie. The routes guy, will go with Emmanuel Sanders. I think everyone's going to love watching this guy run routes. And the alpha, it's Diggs, man. That's Diggs. That dude, man, he led the league in receiving last year, right? Everybody knew the Bills were going to throw the ball to Stephon Diggs.
Right.
And nobody stopped it. He got better as the season went on. That's an alpha. That's a guy that walks on the field. I'm getting the ball. Nobody's stopping me. And he did it game after game. So he's the alpha. I feel bad that I didn't have a spot for Cole Beasley, but I think he's kind of all of it too. Like, he's the possession guy. He's the red zone guy. He's the routes guy. So, I mean, Beasley's the jack of all trades.
And there's a reason I set this question up, because most people might say, like, what kind of question is that? We have those guys. Do we? And that's what brings me back into when you mentioned receiver at 30, right? Too often I was seeing Curtis Samuels. We need Samuels on the Bills. We need Samuels on the Bills. We need that guy, right? We don't get him. So, like, do we need him? So the speed guy, right? Who's our speed guy? So, and I brought that up because there usually is a dynamic, a prototype of a receiver that we want. You want your possession guy. You want your speed guy. You want your route guy. Obviously, Diggs is all of that and the above, but then who's our other guy? So maybe that pick at 30, it's so interesting that you mentioned that. Maybe we do grab someone that fills a specific role that we need, which is that Percy Harvin type of receiver. So my guy Zach, are you okay with how Joe presented it? Do you feel like we have every one of those roles filled out? Or are we missing a prototypical guy on this offense?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, when you sent the question over, I thought it was so cool going through and filling it out because it seemed like every single gap had a piece to plug it into. And it just showed me that, man, the Bills wide receiver core is just, it is one of, if not the best in the league. Every little element you could want is there at this given moment. The one thing I had a tough time plugging in was the speed guy. We actually just lost 3 of our 5 speed guys. We lost Andre Roberts, John Brown, and Robert Foster. Out of the top 5 speedsters on the team, those were 3 of them. So that basically leaves Isaiah McKenzie, but I have him filled in at the obvious category a little bit down the line here. But I'll start off with alpha because it's the easiest answer. Stephon Diggs, you could argue, is the alpha receiver of the entire NFL. He led the league in both receptions and yards, both career highs for him. 8 TDs, second career high for him. But the one stat that really blew my mind, and it kind of comes back to what Joe was talking about. You know he's going to get the ball, yet he had 8 consecutive games with 7 catches or more, and that hadn't been done by a Bill since Eric Moulds in 2002. So not only do you bring in a guy like Diggs, but he immediately elevates the offense to a level that we haven't seen in 2 decades. And he did it against every team's best corner. And an alpha guy not only is the best player on the team, or arguably the best, he's the best skill player, but they also elevate everybody else. And that's exactly what Diggs did. He came in and immediately became their best skill player and also elevated everyone around him. To me, the possession guy, the easy answer was Beasley, because I'm thinking of one guy. If I'm trying to move the sticks, I'm finding Beasley. He's always open in the middle. And he's got incredibly underrated hands. He's catching the majority of the balls that are going to hit him on the hands. He's got incredible hands, incredible footwork, and he just always seems to be open. And what we talked about this a lot throughout the season, Rico. It was feed Beasley.
Yeah.
They just tic-tac down the field when Beasley was the primary target. So if I need a first down, I'm looking at Cole Beasley in the middle. Gadget guy, McKenzie, and I'm so glad we brought him back. I hope that they just utilize him a little bit more this year, because every limited opportunity they gave him, he seemed to cash in. You watch that Miami Dolphins game, he's got a punt return. He's got a running touchdown. He's got a receiving touchdown. He threw a touchdown against the Cardinals. The guy can do it all, and he's probably now one of, if not the quickest guy on the roster. So he's a perfect gadget guy who I think deserves more snaps this coming season. And the fact that he wanted to stay and the fact that they brought him back speaks volumes of a lot of different areas of the Bills team, but more importantly, towards him. They see the value in him. I just hope that they utilize it a bit more this coming year.
I think they will. And
I think they will too.
And that's the beauty of having these type of receivers that we have. We're giving every tool that Josh Allen needs to succeed and put up points, because that's how you win this game, man. You got to put the points up on the board. No more 19 points a game, 17 points a game. We're putting up almost 30, so we'll take it. Now, before we get out of here, that's the number one, the $1 million question is, what the heck are these Bills going to do at pick 30? All right. Now, before we even get into this, Joe, I have to ask you this as a senior analyst, and you're looking, this is what you do. This is your bread and butter. You do this in your sleep. Right? How much when analyzing what the team is going to do, obviously in the Bills, that it's what you think that they're going to do and what you think the Bills are going to do. How hard is it to kind of like move away from what your personal feelings should be, that what they do, and what you think the Bills is going to do? Because I find it as a fan, I'm like, man, I would do this. Yeah, but that's me. What is the team going to do? So how do you, as a professional, figure those things out?
You study trends as best you can. You try to be aware of the types of players and in schemes and what fits both the organization and the scheme, and do the best you can. But I mean, at the end of the day, the best mock drafters in the world maybe get 10 or 11 picks right every year, 12, 13, maybe if you really do well. Most people get less than 10 correct. So nobody's good at this. Nobody's good at making mock drafts. So it's challenging. I mean, making predictions is hard about the future, right? Like it's not easy to do, especially when there's dominoes. Like if you predict one thing to happen and it doesn't, well, it sets off a domino effect that throws off your entire mock draft. Last year with the offensive tackles, we knew 5 were going to go in the first round, but we didn't know what order they were going to go in. So if you didn't have Andrew Thomas as the first one to the Giants, your whole thing was screwed up. So it's challenging. I don't pretend to be good at it. And I don't think anybody is, but you try to do the best you can, have a good process and how you get to conclusions and go from there.
Wonderful. So I'm going to put you on the spot. The Buffalo Bills are at the podium and the pick is in with the 30th pick in the 2021 draft. The Buffalo Bills select.
Man, predictively. Man, there's a lot weighing on what I say right here. I feel the gravity. Oh man. Okay. Well, man, I wasn't prepared to answer this until like the day before the draft. So
you
as
don't have
today,
to, if it's part of your thing that you don't have to.
No, I still have a lot more to learn. You know what I mean? Because the mouthpieces, I'm getting some information. I've heard some things.
Okay.
But I don't know what I'm buying quite yet. And I know that's terrible. Like everybody probably wants to hear what I have to say.
People are like,
I'll give you if today was the day before the draft and I had to make a prediction.
Okay. Fair.
My prediction is that the Bills would draft Elijah Moore, wide receiver, Ole Miss.
Now, this is if the draft started tomorrow, folks. He's not saying that's what the Bills are going to do. Is if the draft started
Unless
tomorrow.
They do, Rico, then you pull this video clip and you broadcast it from everything you have. On April 6th, I told you what happened. So
Elijah Moore. I'm being
predictive. I'm being predictive.
You're being predictive. Now, what is it about Elijah Moore that maybe people don't know about that they should start to do homework on Elijah Moore?
Well, Elijah Moore, I think, in terms of skill set, is a mix between Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley. And I think stylistically, he's exactly what the Bills like at wide receiver. Guys that are dynamic route runners with some speed and really consistent with their hands. And he gives them some yards after catch. He plays bigger than his size. And I think you watch this Bills evolution at wide receiver. You remember the guys that Brandon Beane initially had? Andre Holmes and Kelvin Benjamin and these big towering wide receivers.
Absolutely.
There's been a fundamental shift, right? In going after John Brown and Cole Beasley and Steph Diggs and getting these dynamic Emmanuel Sanders, dynamic route runner. Size is an afterthought. They want guys that can get open and catch a football. And I just think right now, like I said, as of today, predictively, I'm not saying that'd be the pick I would make.
Totally understand.
Predictively, and for a reason, I say Elijah Moore.
This clip will be cut just so you have it and just so you know. It will be put out there. So if you're right, boy, oh boy.
But only if I'm right, Rico. You bury this. If this doesn't happen, you bury this in the ground and nobody talks about it.
It's out of here. Zach, what do you got? What do you have? What do you see, or what do you predictively feel the Bills will tend to gravitate towards in this draft?
Got to get that draft music.
Looks like Eric Wood is
Buffalo Bills have traded the 30th pick.
Oh shoot!
To fill in the blank. I just think that there's so many teams right now that are desperate, and I think that as the draft unfolds, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate a guy like Joe, who's tapped into this infinitely more than I am.
100%
saying, I don't know anything, because that is ultimately what the draft is. Because if everybody knew something, the drafts would not unfold the way they have. Look at the Jets. You and me were talking off air, Rico. 7 straight first-round picks are no longer a New York Jet.
Tough.
I mean, come on. And these are guys who are getting paid millions to do it. So the fact that Joe's saying that makes me feel a lot better about myself, because I go into this saying, God, I mean, you could go this way, you could go that way. But what I keep coming back to is I look at that 30th pick and how many teams would benefit from trading up to get a guy that they think they need. When the Bills look at 30, is there a guy that they look at indefinitely, knowing how many things have to happen for their guy to fall to them, that they say, I need that guy at 30? Whereas they can acquire more stock trade down, not too far back, but far enough back where they acquire more stock and perhaps still get the guy that's on their radar. So if I were to just take a random roll of the dice and guess, I wouldn't blow my mind if the Bills trade down and work at the draft that way. I think that they can still get guys that they're eyeing while also trading down.
You went with the safe trade down pick.
I did.
Pick a player, Zach.
Yeah, you went.
Oh my God. Damn it. Right. He traded back and got who? I went on record. You got to go on record,
you
brother.
Did right. You
all right, I'll go on record. All right. Man, now I'm understanding where Joe is coming from. Where he's like, damn.
Well, listen,
there it is, the weight. It's right there.
Let me give Zach time to. And you know what? I'm not going to give you time.
You didn't give Joe time. Or Joe.
I just kept on talking until I convinced myself of what I was going to say.
Yes. Although I got to say, when Joe laid that out, man, that I did not come into this even thinking wide receiver would be.
Stop stalling.
No, I am stalling. I got to give credit where credit's due because I didn't think of it, but now it's all I'm thinking about. It's like somebody mentioned in the comments. I know I'm stalling, but tweet wide receiver like a ball pen in baseball. I thought that was genius. All right.
With the 30th pick.
This is what I want because this is what I want. And it also could happen, but this is what I want because I am a guy who enjoys the hell out of Bill's Twitter because I just love it. I love it. And everybody gets all riled up and I want to have a couple beers, sit back and watch Bill's Twitter explode when Goodell walks out there and drafts Najee Harris. That's what I want. I want, not only do I want it for that element, but I'm interested to see what would happen if they went that route. I'm interested to see what would happen to the run game if they spent a first-round pick in that department. How much more would they focus on it? How much more would things change? But selfishly, I would love to see it just to watch Twitter go on fire. I think it would be hilarious.
Let me not waste time. And
right.
Talk all
You've
this
had
like
all the time listening to us, Rico. Come on,
Joe,
you're ready.
So for me, and I hate to give out my stuff because I have a contest with my man Bobby and Pierre, and we do a mock draft, and I'm about to give away my pick right now, but I don't give a damn. I'm still gonna win it. I'm going with cornerback from Syracuse, that African warrior, Malafonwu. Afaiti or Afautu Malafonwu. Boy, if we get that long, lengthy, don't give a damn, go in the dirt and tackle anybody that's around and can still cover, and you put him next to Trey White, boy, oh boy, forget about seasoned vet. You're going to find a fountain of youth that Jerry Hughes is going to find. My man Mario Addison is going to find that, and even AJ Epinesa is going to get in on the action. You find yourself a lockdown corner at the number 30 spot with Malafonwu from Syracuse, and he's I mean, you guys already know him because he's in that area. Yo, we good, man. Now you get after that quarterback. Now Milano's looking like a G. Now you have Tremaine Edmonds looking like a monster. Listen, that corner changes everything. You get yourself a lockdown corner, it's game over. Now Bobby over here spying on what I just said, but that's it for me. So Joe went with receiver, right? What was Elijah Moore?
Elijah Moore.
ZBOT wants.
Hey, and by the way, what Joe said, clip this out when the running backs drafted so I can have my field day.
Yeah, I got you.
And watch it all burn.
And I'm going with Ifaitu. Is that what his name is? Ifaitu and Malafonwu. And we're gonna see how that goes, man. Listen, we could be completely wrong, or one of us is on the money and we got it, and we're gonna pound the chest and say we got this. But anyway, folks, that's it for us. Joe, before we get out of here, let people know where they can find you, what you have going tomorrow, because I know you have something every single day, which I have to give you mad props because that is tough in itself. I don't know how you do it. Respect to you. But what do we have going for you tomorrow?
Well, thanks for having me. First of all, this was a lot of fun with interacting with both of you guys.
Appreciate it.
The best way to find me is on Twitter at the Joe Marino is the draft handle, is the Twitter handle. Work at thedraftnetwork.com. Also host 2 podcasts, Draft Dudes and Locked On Bills. They're daily. So if you want to hear the NFL draft and all of football, we got you that covered on Draft Dudes, and then Buffalo Bills specific on Locked On Bills. And tomorrow on Locked On Bills is Herd Mentality. It's a Q&A type podcast where I dive into a lot of different topics and even more analysis on this run game stuff where I give some percentages regarding zone and gap running. So check that out tomorrow.
Listen, Zach, We got a show tomorrow. What are you doing tomorrow, man?
We do. Follow me at ZachB22 on Twitter. And then Smoke Break, brand new tomorrow. I'm diving in to Sam Darnold going to Carolina as we continue to watch the AFC East just run around like chickens with their head cut off. Get into that and my thoughts on what I think the Jets should have done. Because I'm in the camp, and I'd love to get – I know we don't have a lot of time, but I was in the camp that the Jets were going to trade down, and that's obviously not the case. Carolina's starting over with Sam Darnold, and I think that Sam Darnold still has yet to show how good he really is. So tune in tomorrow for that, and I'll continue to talk about Najee Harris at 30 and get Bill's Twitter all riled up for that too. But that's on Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel as well, right where you're at.
I like it. Well, listen, my man Bobby says, I pray we don't draft Afaitu, I think his name is, simply so we don't have to hear Rico pronounce his name. I butcher everybody's name. My goodness, man. So if he gets it, you better believe I'm going to make sure I know how to say his name properly, because I will gloat all year long that I got it right. Anyway, folks, that is our show for today. This is the Rico Report / the Smoke Break. My man ZBOT and I decided to put something together for you guys. Once a month, we'll be coming together and potentially we'll have a guest. And we were joined by our guy, Joe Marino. Joe, I hope you had some fun today, man. You had to rock it out and do big things. And hopefully we'll bring you back on so you can gloat and say that we drafted Elijah Moore. Who knows? We have no idea. So, folks, that's our show. You guys enjoy yourselves. And until next time, it is Rico, my man ZBOT, and the draft guru down here, Joe Marino. And we will catch you guys another time. You guys have a good night. Let's go.